Hello and welcome everyone to Ananke's Literature Festival. I am absolutely thrilled to welcome our guest speakers on this eShe panel. Welcome everybody. So this panel titled The Diaspora Lens, Writing Between Here and Home. In this session, we talk about what it means to write from the hyphen, to belong to two places at once, and sometimes fully to neither. The diaspora lens brings together poets and writers whose work move across languages, borders, and generations to ask how the diasporic imagination reshapes the very idea of home. And with us are these amazing authors, and I begin with Kashiana Singh. Kashiana Singh is the author of Dualities of El Barrio, the poetry box, published by the Poetry Box in 2025, Witching Hour, Woman by the Door, and Crushed Anthills. She is an alumna of Voices of Our Nation's Arts Foundation and Martha's Vineyard Institute of Creative Writing, managing editor for Poets Reading the News, and the president of the North Carolina Poetry Society. Singh lives in Apex, North Carolina. Welcome, Kashiana. Anita Nahal, PhD, is a professor, poet, children's book writer, novelist, and short filmmaker, nominated twice for the Pushcart Prize, finalist Tagore Literary Prize. Anita won the 2024 Nissim Prize for Excellence in Literature. Her latest poetry collection is Animals, Prose Poems on Sentiency, Decency, and Indecency. In May 2026, Anita's poem appeared in the Poem a Day by the Academy of American Poets. She was a finalist, Fairfax Poet Laureate in 2024. Anita has authored 17 books, 1 novel, 5 poetry collections, 1 of flash fiction, 4 for children, and 6 edited anthologies. Anita's poems have appeared in numerous journals in the US, UK, Asia, and Australia, and have been anthologized in many collections, including the Polaris Trilogy, To the Moon, the Best Asian Poetry, Yearbook of Indian Poetry in English, and 20 Contemporary Indian English Poets. Anita appears in the 2025 Springer's Encyclopedia and Dictionary of Diasporic Indian English Writing. Recently, Anita launched into making films under 5 minutes, and both her films, Unshaming a Period and Clubs, My Sinful Dance Muse, won the Best Super Short Film at festivals in Canada, India, and Venezuela. Anita is the daughter of Sahitya Academy award-winning Indian novelist and professor, the late Dr. Chaman Nahal, and educationist, the late Dr. Sudareshna Nahal. A Fulbright and NEH scholar, Anita teaches at a university in Washington, D.C. Anita, welcome, and apologies for any mispronunciation. Pramila Venkateswaran, apologies, Venkateswaran, Poet Laureate of Suffolk County, Long Island, is the author of many poetry volumes, the most recent being We Are Not a Museum. Winner of New York Book Festival Award and Exile is Not a Foreign Word, winner of the International Impact Award. Tamil Dalit Feminist Poetics. Tamil Dalit Feminist Poetics is her latest book of literary criticism. She is the co-director of Matwala the South Asian Diaspora Poetry Festival. She teaches poetry workshops in the US and abroad and leads a Writing to Heal class in New York for breast cancer patients. Shailaja Rao is based in Seattle, Washington, and is an executive director of eShe, an independent newsroom covering South Asian women and diaspora communities. She is also a film programmer at the Seattle International Film Festival, where she curates the Asian Crossroads section, and a founder of South Asian Lens, a platform connecting South Asian filmmakers and storytellers across the diaspora and South Asia. Her background spans human rights and women's rights work, arts leadership, film programming, and cultural advocacy. She writes across forms, including essays, film criticism, and reported journalism, and believes a well-told story can change how people see themselves and each other. She's a longtime advocate for secularism and democratic values in South Asia, holding that storytelling and who gets to tell it are never separate from the political moment. Her four grandchildren are her inspiration. Welcome, Shailaja.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the lovely introductions. And we really appreciate the Anamke Film Festival to, allow us to do this panel. Again, I would like to give a warm welcome to everyone at this eShe poetry panel. Today's theme is the Diaspora Lens, writing between home and here. Actually, it's here and home. I was thinking, how about we start with everyone reading out, each of you reading out one of your poems. And anyone can choose to begin. Would you like to go, Kashiana?
I can go.
Since everyone's thinking, so I might as well.
I'm happy to go, and it takes immense courage to read a new poem. So I'm actually going to abandon all of these and go with a new poem, which is going to be part of my in progress collection. First of all, before I go there, Shailaja, Sabine, Anita, Pramila, what a pleasure to be in your company. Anita and Pramila know very well. I would give my left arm and right leg to be on a panel with them any day. But Shailaja and Sabine, thank you for having us. And the subject is extremely close to, I know, all our hearts, but to my heart as well, and is the central motif to most of my writing and collections. So with that, thank you for the invitation to start with a poem reading. Nothing like that to start a panel that is focused on poetry and writing. I just have it here. The poem I'm going to read, and again, like I said, forgive me, it's a new poem, very, very new poem, but I'll read it. This is safe zone, safe company. The poem is titled, "None of it happened and all of it is true." It's a quote from one of the interviews that I heard with Ann Patchett and their new book, The Whistler, that's out. If you haven't read it, you should. But this came out of one of the interviews that I was listening to with her on a panel. So the title of the poem, like I said, is "None of it happened and all of it is true." It's a curious thing to reduce a family to 5 characters. We tell the story differently. You remember rain, I remember dust. One of us insists the guava tree leaned over the wall. The other says it was gone much before we learned how to climb. Neither of us is lying. Childhood is not a country we can return to together. Even then, we entered the same house, yet through different doors. You inherited temper, or I inherited silence. Or perhaps silence was the only language that fit my mouth. There we are, elbows touching, smiles rehearsed, becoming different stories. We called it growing up. Still, when the world grew too sharp, it was your knock I recognized before the door opened. Now, oceans, marriages, cities, the slow weathering of grief has given us new addresses, new voices, new ways of carrying loneliness. Yet, when we meet, we polish the old arguments like inherited brass. Each certain our memory is the truer one. Well, perhaps memory was never meant to preserve facts. None of it happened the way we tell it. The shared beginning that splintered into different recollections, the invisible thread drawn taut through every room. I often travel back to nights where siblings we lay head to foot on the same cot, our ankles touching, inventing countries where parents never compared children, where no one was the clever one, the difficult one, the sacrificial one, the favorite one, or the disappointed. Mornings always found us back on the same cot. Because isn't memory like a mala, each bead a coral, a mango split unevenly, your hand finding mine in the dark? The mala's thread remains hidden and drawn taut. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Appreciate that, Kashiana. And it's you, as you said, this is the first time you're reading this poem. Wow, we are honored. Amazing, thank you. Yeah, we'll get back. How about any Anita or Pramila, either one of you?
Yeah,
I can
read.
go. You want to go, Pramila? Go ahead.
Sure. First of all, thank you, Shailaja and Sabine, for inviting me to be on this panel. And it's really lovely to be with Kashiana and Anita here. And as Kashiana said, she would give her right leg and arm to be here. It's same. I mean, I feel like they're like family. So it's really wonderful to be here. And Kashiana, thank you for that poem. It was so beautiful. And I wrote down so many of the images in that poem. Memory like a mala. Oh, gorgeous. Okay. And so this poem, I've written many poems that talk about home and here, but I selected this particular poem to read to you today. It's my latest poem that was published this year in Voices of the Valley on Long Island. It's called The Splitting, and it's autobiographical, and it kind of sums up the whole narrative between home and here. The Splitting. Was it just yesterday I left a part of me in a Bombay flat and brought the other half to DC, walking on F Street from Foggy Bottom, dressed in a beige silk tunic with slim pants, swinging a long braid, eyes shiny with desire? A young Black man whistles. I know I'm a rare plant in a city called Southern, for it shoulders Virginia and Maryland and their dark past. My green half tastes the annals of American literature, for after all, it's only in poems and stories can I see the real country I've entered to grow my mind. Although the other half knows my mind has been formed by the rain-soaked earth that bred me, fed me philosophies, sprinkled my body with lyrics. This Bombay half visits my in dreams, interrupts me in class when I'm reading Whitman, and I obey its nudging and write a Vedic interpretation of Song of Myself. And my professor is ecstatic and I crush on him, even though I know he's married. Such is praise from a man and a professor at that. And you, a woman, are intoxicated by approval, plus the insights the brain unspools from its shock of the strange, Anyway, this new me rushing down F Street to class, eating the same meal of cheese sandwich and tomato soup, gains 15 pounds and tosses out her clothes, swapping them for jeans and sweaters. Writes sagas to Amma and Baba on blue airmail letters in a tiny scrawl, using every bit of space to create the illusion of thriving in a cold climate. So they believe I learned to keep looking forward instead of back, and thus decades pass, time freezes or rushes. Did I know that one day I'd find my parents old, sick, and needing me to return to join the half I left behind?
Oh, thank you, Pramila. I was intoxicated by approval. I love that. Great. Yeah, let's go to Anita.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much, Shailaja and Sabin, for inviting me to be part of this panel where I have two wonderful friends whom I have known for long and met only Pramila, but it seems I've known them forever. That's what I feel, our hearts match. So thank you so much. And I really love listening to the two other poems because there's so much about the diaspora. And it seems like I could have written those poems. I think we all feel quite a lot the same. What I'm going to read first, just now, is a poem which in a way reflects how I have been feeling, and I think about it, whether I would have lived in India or that I moved to the US. But this is what I'm feeling over time, and we can talk a little bit more about it later. Um, it's really an emphasis on being a householder and enjoying, silence and peace. It's called The Quiet Shift, and this was published in the American Academy of Poem a Day. Something in me revels in silent mojos. Something in me anchors in chaos, collecting in pleats like dripping wax. Something in me presents like solid linen, while something drifts like silk in tousled winds. Something in me watches me from foreign dimensions. Something in me walks barefoot. Something in me thuds like tactical boots heard by neighbors down the street. And then something in me stays, inaudibly staring at no one. In every state, I hope to be understood. Wait, what? My needs, my errors, my missteps, my love, my extended giving nibble like besotted puppies with immature teeth. Deliberately, as it rains or snows, I let these lead me into some sort of wisdom as I rub my palms, soothing the aridity of increasing wrinkles. Sigh, sigh, again sigh. I try, truly I do. I promise I try. I even sing me a soft lullaby. If nothing folds, it's goodbye. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Anita. I need to be understood. That stood out for me. um, so I guess this is a good time to ask my first question. Again, maybe we'll just start with the same pattern, Kashiana and Pramila and then Anita. So walk us through how a piece actually starts for you. Is it an image, a line, a memory, or something else that pulls you in first? Does that process change when you're writing about home versus where you live now? Kashiana, you're on mute.
Thank you, Shailaja. There's a lot of places you can go to with that question. But in general, I start with the threshold. And the threshold could be the threshold of an image. It could be the threshold of the time of my day, Shailaja, or it could be the threshold of a memory, right? However, I think that, and I've realized this as you grow and you write more and you reflect more, you want to answer that question for yourself, because when you're younger, there's a lot that you're just writing, you're producing. And in reflecting on that question, I realized that um, I write the most sincerely when I'm at some kind of a threshold. And it could be early dawn and dusk. It could be the time of the day. I write really well when it's everybody in the household is asleep and I'm writing at that point, or early morning and I'm following my Mary Oliver principle of walking out into the woods with a notebook and a pencil, whether literally or metaphorically. But also the threshold of distance between the here and there in your key topic. And sometimes when I travel, and fortunately or unfortunately, as Sabine said, she's rushing to Pakistan for family caregiving needs. Just in this year, I've traveled thrice to India already for different caregiving and or work situations, but mostly on an emergent basis, unplanned. And when I do that, when I am on the soil that I came from, I actually cannot write as much. It's when I board the plane back that all the writing starts pouring out. So the threshold of distance becomes a key point. And then lastly, the threshold of an image. It's almost like the images that are, when you do your eye examination each year, they do the test of your peripheral vision. And it's almost like the images that are at my peripheral vision draw more of writing than the ones that are right in front of my eyes, blank and center. So those three are how it starts. And I think, Shailaja, to your point on how it shifts, I don't think it shifts so much except for what I just said, which is I have found it hard to write feelings, the images, and the people around me as well. It's almost not possible for me to write. But when the distance starts to evolve and the threshold starts to occur, my writing comes out. On the other hand, when I'm here in the physical now and present, I do not have that challenge. I don't know what the answer to that is. I don't think we need an answer. The questions are important. The answers are not. But that question is very clear to me that something doesn't allow me to do it when I'm there in physical space, but I can do it when I'm at a distance. I hope that answered where you were trying to go.
Yeah, that's actually quite interesting. You say that I've been thinking because my writing also, I think you get I don't know what the reasoning is, why even I am not able to unless there's a deadline and I have no choice but to finish. That's when you're like, and then my mom, of course, like, you're always on the laptop. You get to hear that, right? But it's interesting. So I see, like, is it because we might be just absorbing so much in that vicinity, in that place, and all the sounds, the smells, the talk, the everything, and then once you're out, I mean, honestly, when I'm on the plane and the doors are shut and you need to switch off, that's when everything rushes back and you feel that you're relaxed, but then you're also, everything comes to
there's a compulsion to write at that point. It's almost compelling, like you have to write at that point.
Yeah, you got to pour it onto something. Yeah. Good. Okay. Great. And Pramila, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. I'll pick up on something that Kashiana said about distance. I find it's much easier for me to write about something that happened way back in the past. So I've been writing about childhood memories, for instance. I can talk about it in a much more vivid manner. And I think distance gives us the ability to use language in very, incisive, sharp ways, and, to see where it flows. So I often, when I write, I have no agenda. So I don't think, oh, this is the topic I want to write on. It's never like that. So I approach poetry as sadhana. Sadhana, like practicing every day, just like a dancer or a musician, they have to practice every day. So that's how it has been for me. So every day, even if it's a few lines, I write a few lines in the morning. It can start with an image. Sometimes it starts with a word. It can start with a conversation that I had with someone. It can be a remembered conversation from long ago. Um, Sometimes if I feel, oh, there's really nothing to write about, I open a book and then, pick a word and then I start from there. So I use all of these tricks, but the whole idea is to get the, pen moving across the page. And I really believe in, the motor connection between my fingers and my brain. So I do not use the laptop. I have a journal and a pencil or a pen. For me, that is very important. So I sit on my couch, next to my plants, that are facing the window, and that's my inspiration. So I sit right there. So my whole family knows that's my morning time next to the window, and I'm writing. So my kids have known that right from when they were very little, and they always knew how to respect mom is writing. So that's my thing. So I just want to say a little bit about a word. I can give an example. Um, I was listening to the eulogy of Nancy Pelosi at John Lewis's funeral, and she used the word satyagraha. So immediately that got me thinking. And I remembered John Lewis on the floor of the House. 2 days straight he was on the floor. He didn't care about eating or drinking. He was there fighting for the bill. And then I was looking at all the photographs of earlier on when he was on the bridge, on Selma and being beaten by white policemen. And that image was so stark. I just started writing about that image and exploring it and thinking about how satyagraha has been featured in, civil rights and how it has sort of transformed in recent years and how satyagraha is a living thing right now in our time, right here in the present. So it was so energizing for me because I was both here and in India at the same time. And the images of satyagraha, in India. So all of that sort of came alive in me. And I felt like, oh, this is what it is. I am neither there nor here, but I am in the moment of being a transnational poet involved with matters of justice. I think that's my thing. It is not like here or now. It's, justice matters, and there's been so much conversation between India and the US, especially African Americans and, the people involved with the Indian independence and so much synergy. So I wanted to, I'm sort of bringing all of that into my poetry. Yeah, so when you look at photographs, it's again a technique of ekphrasis, right? So you're looking at photographs and seeing how you can bring that into your language. So I feel it's a kind of an imagistic transference that happens, to the language. And so there can be multiple traces that one can do with memory, imprint that you're seeing in front of you, and then imprint being transferred onto language. So I would say it's multiple traces of memory and language.
Thank you, Pramila. Yeah, I like how you seem to be very methodical and you have, like you said, sadhana, you practice each morning to put, with your paper and pen and you're writing down something based on what you're seeing or feeling. And yeah, I wish I had that nature of being methodical with writing. I don't know because sometimes for me, it's mood, if I'm in the mood or not. So there'll be days when I'm not in the mood to, but then all of a sudden something strikes and you start writing immediately. It just rushes into, yeah. Yeah, awesome. Anita, would you like to answer?
Yeah, sure. So I think I am, in terms of writing, I'm pretty much like Pramila. My father had, there's a sentence he used to use when he was writing and I was growing up. He was used to say, respect the process. He said that every day sit down and, having a journal, writing pad at that time, even if nothing comes out, you have to give it that respect. Give it half an hour or 1 hour, even if one word comes out. So I still practice that uh, till about last year, to be honest, when I went into a huge writer's block for various reasons. Not to go into that, but and in terms and that's so that's the first thing. And secondly, in terms of whether I write or based on an image or is it a word, or I think I go by emotions. Led by emotions. If I feel strongly about something, I will write. It could come from an image, it could come from word, it could come from my own memory and thoughts. um, and whether I'm in India, whether I'm traveling or I'm here, again, as long as I feel very strongly about something, and generally these are issues of justice, as Pramila mentioned. For me also, I write mostly on justice all over the world. And once that idea comes to my mind, I see something in the news, someone being hurt or killed, or something going on, a war or something, that goes and impacts me deeply, and I will start writing. So that's where I combine the two, the respect for the process and acknowledgement, a nod to my own feelings, that I have to bring them out. Because so many writers, I think Maya Angelou and others, have said that who can best tell your story but your own self. So you have to tell your story. And sometimes the words are there, the story is inside me, and I cannot put it down on paper. And then I get very, very frustrated, to be honest, that why am I not able to put it? I can put it on paper, but it may not read well. If I am not in love with something I write, how can I share it then? So, yeah, so these are my thought processes and ways of writing. About things we can discuss later.
Yeah, great. So, like I remember, I think it was Javed Akhtar who said, like, no matter what, just put it down, whether it looks good to you or not, put it down, and then you can keep refining it. Um, so that stuck with me.
Right.
Of course, you need to put it down to do that,
Yeah, correct.
but there's a lot of truth to that, right? You can just put on those words and then work on it. So, do you guys have you start writing something and there's a block, and then all of a sudden after a few days you come back to it, and then you're progressing? How does it work, this writing? And do you edit? Do you go back to, like, how much of an editing process goes on through your writing? You want to
Shall
go?
I respond
Yeah,
to it? Because I
Anita.
was
Yeah.
So, yes, you write something, and then sometimes you write something and I'll say, oh, wow, this seems pretty much, complete. It's never complete the first time or second time. But even if I feel that it's complete, I constantly edit. I also tend to use the thesaurus and dictionary a lot, because I don't want to repeat adjectives, or any other nouns or verbs, whatever. I don't like to repeat them in different stanzas. So I have a rigorous process. Once I write, the editing is very, very strong, very deep. And sometimes I'll write something and it gets published, and I'll read it and I'll say, oh my gosh, I wish I had not written it like that, or that word could have been changed. So, in its new avatar, if it gets published anywhere else, I tend to send an edited version. And many of us do. We'll also write it there. It's a new version. So, yeah, the editing never ends, even after a product you think it's complete and it's published. So, that's the way I approach it, constantly editing it.
Yeah. How about others? Pramila and Kashiana, how do you guys go about it?
In addition to all the points that Anita said, which I also do, what I do is that I have multiple writing projects. I mean, it's not just poetry, but say a novel or prose piece that I'm working on, or a Substack post, or a review that I'm writing. So since I'm writing on all these different genres, that really helps because it not just feeds each other, but the thing is I can leave one aside and then concentrate on something else, and then leave that and then go back. So I think the going back, returning to a piece, I think really helps. And with the space that happens between when the piece was originally written and then after some time you go back, you can reread the piece, and determine, what are the things that need to be changed. That being said, I think sometimes I also go back to an older piece and I try to maybe pick up like one line from it that I really like, and then I rewrite the entire piece just using that line. So sometimes a piece may the end piece that gets published may never resemble the first draft that I wrote. Yeah, so it goes through all these iterations, but very rarely does a piece happen just whole and complete and without me even having to do much. But again, that's a gift. So yeah, so
Yeah.
Yeah, Shailaja, I'll lean into both what Anita and Pramila said, and you can't see it, but right here in front of my desk, I'll just read directly from there. There's a little paper which says, "Write before you judge, edit in layers," meaning the way I've written it is structure, clarity, grammar, and then read aloud. And in one of the workshops I attended, I was told draft with confidence and edit with humility. So don't hesitate in letting what needs to come out, but then be humble when you're editing. And I think that's the key point, which also said differently is the kill your darlings quote, right, that exists. However, I think to what Pramila said, when you kill your darlings for that piece. But you keep them because you could always come back to that darling for a different perspective, for a different need, at a different time of your own mental phase and brain. There is only one poem so far that I've written that came out whole the first time, that got published the way it came out whole, and that I have never edited. And if you get a chance, I might be reading that today. Pramila, you've heard the poem. It's about the partition and my dad's story. So that's the only poem so far that Shailaja has not gone through edits. Otherwise, like Anita said, every time you actually go back and look at a piece, even when it's in a collection or an anthology or printed, you need to edit it because you are a different person by the time you look at it again.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, wow. So I guess we could now get into how about doing our second poem. Should we go on to doing that? Kashiana, you want to start because you have the mic on?
Yeah, I have the mic on and I do have a hard stop, so I will take the liberty if it's okay. And like I said, this is a poem that's just at the center of the here and now, here and there. We've all lived it. Our ancestors, our parents have lived it. It's about the India-Pakistan partition and my dad's. It's from the lens of my dad, going back to there, to where his childhood started. And it was published in my collection, Shelling Peanuts and Stringing Words. That was my second collection, and it's called Mangroves. Mangroves. Act 1. I set out once looking for mangroves with haunted stories about the withered woman with feet that turned inwards, the mangroves with secret spells hovering over lampposts, the mangroves where boys scuffled and where men gathered to grope for survival, the mangroves that displaced the rotten smell of burning flesh as each canopy collapsed into an Asian pile. Act 2. I waited. I waited to enter the looming arch of the house that echoed my mother's desires in entombed gold and treasures, the house that watched silence, the gates that creaked, each howling ground recollecting a plea, wretchedness of bruised bodies and naked shadows still lingering behind its walls. Act 3. I walked. I walked the platform again, chugging wheels that recited memories of trains moving like ghosts between places, transporting phantoms. The platform I walked again covered me in soot of butchered history. I lifted some soil, some scars, some sketches. Act 4. I opened the tall gates and entered against my will into the portico to my beginnings. I swaddled myself with the elegance of my mother, the industriousness of my father, the grit of my brothers, the sacrifice of my sisters, the flawlessness of their songs as they chanted, possessed to their dead and their crippled and their humiliated and their young and newborn. Act 5. I bow in thankfulness and accept the warm tea served by the house lady on the veranda. Mangroves. Thank you.
That was very profound. That was intense. I could also hear it in your voice, Kashiana, how it must have, how you feel about it even today. Do you remember when you wrote this poem?
Distance, again, to where we were saying on how my dad went back to Pakistan and, as you can see, visited, and that was part of the lore, as the Gen Z would call it. It was part of the lore that I heard. He went there when I was in in college, but I didn't write it till 15 years later and didn't write it till I was in the US. I could not put pen to paper.
Mm.
So but something happened, and I think it was around completely different situations, but that was happening. I think Pramila and Anita both said it. The satyagraha, the here and there, it's always about the moment. There was something happening here that was similar but different in nature. It might have been around the elections and the Mexico wall and all of that, Shailaja, and that came out. And it's a hard one to go back to every time.
Yeah. There was a trigger that made you just put it onto the paper, and then yeah. And I think that's often that we do find these triggers, right? Where we're living, we find these triggers, and then it immediately brings you to a memory back home, which is very similar. Like right now, the immigration and what all is happening with the geopolitics that's taking place. We find a lot of similar aspects in India or in South Asia, and what's happening right here.
Thank you for
Thank you for that, Kashiana. Thank you. Pramila or Anita, how about your next poem?
Yeah, thank you for that poem, Kashiana. Each time I hear it, it's like it just touches me so deeply. Thank you. Since I talked about the word satyagraha and what prompted me to write that poem, I'll read that poem. Satyagraha. The epigraph is from John Lewis's, the eulogy for John Lewis by Nancy Pelosi, and it goes, Satyagraha in Sanskrit means two things. It means nonviolence, and it means insistence on the truth. And that is what John Lewis was all about, non-violently insisting on the truth. As he crossed the bridge in Selma, seared by sun, bearing beatings, sand grains stinging split skin, vermilion blooming on black bodies, Lewis pressed on. as the great one in India had persisted stubbornly. Active nonviolence haunted bold young Lewis bearing white policeman's blows. Lifting his hands to protect his spinning head, he heard the tune of his lineage. We've to keep going on, to keep going on. Scratched black and white photos of yesterday, metamorphosed today into multicolor marches, despite paddy wagons packing dissenters in. Jail doors open, hungry for tenants, but young satyagrahis relentlessly gather in new borders. They know the iron taste of truth.
Thank you so much, Pramila. Yeah. Now you had a solid John Lewis, and you had that solid imagery and everything that made you put it down. Yeah, appreciate it. Anita?
So, this poem of mine, since I tend to write a lot on injustice of any kind in the world, one of them is feminism, no women, abuse against women. And I also tend to write about or take characters from mythology and make them center stage in my poem. So, this poem is called What's Wrong with Us Kali Women, which is from my third book, What's Wrong with Us Kali Women. There's nothing wrong, nothing wrong. That's your fear labeling us. We are the Kali women and all other female, male, androgynous gods. We don't distinguish. We seek, we learn, comprehend, embrace. We are the Kali women in the forefront, striding and yes, strutting our stuff too. Some men gulp and gawk, making a tight knot of patriarchy. They are the same who have been bowing before Kali's statues for centuries, marking their foreheads with mitti from her robes, and then they call her Ma Kali and walk away brash and brazen and evil. Don't think she's not watching. There's nothing wrong, nothing wrong. That's your fear labeling us. Always in front. We are always in front, straddling between pathways, poles, blocks, and behavior, between screams and footsteps, pining for justice denied, justice battered, justice flagged, murdered, burned, their dark skin, their gender, religion, their sandals blood stained, their clothes drenched, and smelling of your foul breath, with your hands striking, your feet jutting and hitting. And then some in their sinister voice sing well into the murky night, Makali, 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 Makali. Don't think she's not watching. There's nothing wrong, nothing wrong. That's your fear labeling us. We are the Kali women. My skin is Kali, my heart is gold. My soul is a child, cries, laughs, jumps, feelings flow like fresh churned cream from cow's milk. My skin disgusts you, yet you try to tan yours. My skin disturbs you, yet you find it exotic. My skin you call Gandhi, but I am clean. I bathe. In winters, when my skin lightens a bit, you proclaim I am looking soft, fair. I was always clean. It's your mind that is dirty. Even mock bathing in River Ganga might skim above your falseness. Makali, 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 Makali. Don't think she's not watching.
Thank you, Anita. That was very in your face, like you giving giving it. I like that. You're covering gender, religion, skin color, and the whole bit. And my skin is black and my heart is gold. And yeah, very nice. Um, Kashiana, do you have probably a minute or two? Do you want to finish
I
off
have.
with something?
Yeah, thank you so much. I want to say one thing in response to especially Anita's poem, and thank you, Anita. I've obviously read it earlier and heard you read it earlier, but each time it hits home. I think the point, Shailaja, and you may be covering this later, but I'll state my thoughts and then thank you for having me here. I'll drop so I can move to my call. The point I want to make is language between here and there. There is an aspect of language, and it was very clear in Anita's poem, whether it's Hindi, Punjabi, gestures, recipes. I write a lot, and Pramila and I have led workshops around food and poetry, family sayings, mythologies like the Kali reference we just had. So I think between here and now and the threshold aspect creates a whole new vocabulary that sits beneath the English we speak, think, or write in. And to me, I think that again I've learned and realized in these conversations as well as engaging with others that diasporic writing often lives in translation, even when no word is literally being translated. Because the emotional language, the emotional landscape we carry, Shailja, that itself is multilingual. And to me, that's very powerful. And I don't know how much in the academia that is understood or realized. So I feel strongly about that, and I wanted to make sure that's very much connected, especially with Anita's poem.
Yeah, yeah. It's actually, thank you for bringing that up. And I think for me, it's all about, when this is recorded and it's out there for any young diaspora, Gen Zs, or, they listen to it, they learn from it. And so all this, what you guys are saying is really, really important and relevant. So yeah, much appreciated. Okay,
I will drop
Kashiana.
now with your permission,
Yeah.
Shailja. And Pramila and Anita, thank you. Thank you so much for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Thank you, Kashiana. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, take
Bye.
care. Bye-bye.
Yeah, as Kashi was saying, it is true. I mean, there's so much in the language that, that it's a translation of emotions. And there's been much theory about that by post-colonial literary theorists, especially by Gayatri Spivak, who is extensively about that. So I think it's really wonderful. And also, I find that in my own poetry, I have gone back to writing so much about Tamil literature. I started translating Tamil poetry, and my latest book, Tamil Dalit, Feminist Poetics, is all about the Tamil Dalit poets writing in Tamil Nadu. And in the course of writing that book, I of course had to read a lot of the poetry in Tamil and translate them. So I feel that I'm much more in touch with South Asian literature, living here in the US. There's
Yeah.
so much synergy now, with South Asian poets. And also in my own poetry, when multiple languages, embed themselves, um, because I speak multiple languages. So all of that, comes in. So actually one of my books was We Are Not a Museum. It's about Jewish people living in Cochin, Kerala. And as I was writing that book, I was more, very much in sync with Malayalam and Judeo-Malayalam, and listening to Judeo-Malayalam songs, and then bringing that into the poetry. So I even have some German in there, and I have
Oh,
Judeo-Malayalam,
wow.
and I have Hebrew, all of that coming in with, just to show,
Wow.
because that's what captures, what it
Yeah.
means to live as a Jewish person in Kerala. It's those languages, coming into confluence. So
Yeah.
what I'm saying is there's so many layers to our language that I'm glad Kashiana pointed that out. Um, so what we see is a very rich amalgam of poetry of language and poetry, in South Asian, writing.
Yes, yes. Do you worry about, for example, if you're writing about a Black person or not a John Lewis, but in general, um, are you able to write about that person? Do you worry about not being them or having gone through their, whatever their life entails, but you want to write about them? How much of a risk are we taking
Yeah.
by?
So in both my books on Dalit poetry as well as with writing about the Jewish people in South India, I did think about cultural appropriation. And
Right.
so my Dalit book, in my opening chapter is about cultural appropriation, and I made a point to say that I am actually I declared my positionality as a middle class, upper caste woman, and that I am doing this work primarily because I'm really interested in delving into the voice, but at the same time, I do not want to erase that voice because I'm just exploring. But the thing is, I think it's very important to, uh, in order to not to appropriate, one has to really study and immerse oneself into that, whatever that other is, totally immerse oneself, and then only then will be able to write about it, so that one is not superficial or doesn't make like very cursory judgments. So I think like so for both the books, I had to do extensive study in order to be able to write. Yeah.
Right. So there's a lot of research that goes into it, and not just,
Yeah.
you just feel for something and you put your emotions down.
Right. And also
But
declaring one's positionality is very important.
absolutely, like a disclaimer should be out there to know
Yeah.
where you're, the context of, yeah, exactly.
And I
How about
actually
you,
used to,
Anita?
yeah, sure. I don't now currently because the courses I teach keep changing. My PhD was in US history, but my postdoc was on African American women's history. So, and then later on, I taught courses as well because I tried to see similarities between two women of color, one in the US and India, though the historical circumstances are different. So I try to look at the similarities and differences in my courses as well. And writing about it, I have also written poems, as Pramila is saying, one has to be careful and cautious. And I think that when you feel very strongly about injustice happening to anyone, for me, it translates to justice against any human. And I tell people that the greatest feeling that one can have is empathy. If you're watching something on television or reading a news about something happening to a person of a different ethnicity or religion, the first thought, at least the first thought that comes to me is, what if that had been me? Or that had been someone in my family, and so if I position myself in that person, and in fact I sometimes feel so strongly, it brings me to tears again and again when I read news stories and I have to stop myself from reading because I internalize that injustice so much. So on the one hand, yes, my training as an historian and professor in teaching that history, and I think maybe I veered towards doing my postdoc for African American history, looking at that the United States has so many positives, but like any country, it has positives and elements that can are still need to be worked upon. So I think that grounds me, the fact that I teach that history, I learned it with a reason in mind, and then when I bring it into my poetry, it is more a reaction to what I see in happening in the world. So that's how I try to deal with it. That is something I feel it's another human being, and therefore I'm talking. Though the poems, there's one poem I wrote, which was about it has George Floyd and others in it as well. So yeah. So anyway, I'm looking at the time, and I
Yeah.
see Pramila's message, so I'll keep quiet now.
So I think we can end here, and thank you so much for this illuminating session. Really appreciate your thoughts, and hopefully we'll meet again and do another session like this. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you
Thanks,
Thank
very
you.
Pramila.
much,
Thanks, Anita.
Shailaja.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Nice meeting you guys.
Nice
Thank
meeting
you,
you too.
Anita.
Nice meeting you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Sabin.